Britain's Special Air Service was officially formed in July 1941. Action on Armed Violence documented that British Special Forces have been deployed in at least 19 overseas countries in the past decade. The government has officially confirmed fewer than half of them. What follows are 12 of the operations that fell into the other half. We have the names, we have the dates, we have, in most cases, the bodies. What we don't have, and may never have, are the official histories. So we will do without. This is every SAS operation Britain still won't discuss in chronological order. Some of these you will have heard of, some you won't. None of them appear in the Army Historical Branch's official list. All of them happened. Chapter 1. Malaya, 1950 to 1960. In 1950, the British Army officially had no SAS regiment. The wartime unit had been disbanded in 1947, reduced to a single territorial army formation called 21 SAS. What the army had instead was Brigadier James Michael Calvert, Mad Mike to anyone who'd served with him among the Chindits in Burma, and a mandate to assess a communist insurgency eating its way through Malayan jungle. Calvert spent 6 months conducting a covert survey, covering roughly 1,500 miles of territory before reporting back. His conclusion? Only a unit capable of living inside the jungle for weeks at a time could neutralize the Malayan National Liberation Army. He got permission to build one. He called it the Malayan Scouts. A Squadron drew from about 100 local volunteers. B Squadron came from Z Squadron of 21 SAS, diverted from Korea. C Squadron, 120 men, was raised in southern Rhodesia. By the time General Gerald Templer authorized Orang Asli trackers from peninsular Malaysia to support deep jungle operations, the Scouts were the most capable penetration unit in the Commonwealth. On December 22, 1951, they were formally integrated as the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. First Commanding Officer, Lieutenant Colonel John Sloan, not Calvert, who had been quietly replaced 6 months earlier for reasons the Army listed as ill health. In February 1952, B Squadron conducted Operation Helsby in the Belem Valley near the Malayan-Thai border, one of the first significant heli-borne insertions in military history. The valley was cleared of communist terrorists. Few were killed or captured. The MNLA simply moved deeper. The DEFE and WO268 series files at the National Archives covering individual SAS operations in Malaya remain partially closed. Which operations ran, under what rules of engagement, with what casualty figures on both sides? Those questions have no complete public answers 70 years later. The government's silence here isn't strategic embarrassment. It's institutional habit. And the habit started here. Chapter 2. Operation Storm, Dhofar, Oman, 1970 to 1976. Tony Jeeps completed his account of the Dhofar campaign in 1977. It took 3 years to clear MOD and Foreign Office censors before publication. The book is titled SAS, Secret War, Operation Storm in the Middle East. That name, Operation Storm, is what SAS participants called the deployment. No declassified government document uses it. The official position is that the deployment had no public designation at all. In September 1970, the first SAS squadron arrived in Dhofar, Oman's southern province. Their cover? British Army Training Teams, BATTs. The actual mission was to reverse a communist insurgency that had placed most of Dhofar under the Popular Front for the Liberation of the Occupied Arabian Gulf, PFLOAG, backed by South Yemen, the Soviet bloc, and China. The Strait of Hormuz runs along Oman's northern coast. In 1970, it carried 56% of the European Economic Community's oil. Oman falling to communism wasn't an abstract concern. The SAS approach had 4 components: hearts and minds among Jebel villages, veterinary and medical clinics, signals intelligence, and the Furkat program, paramilitary units built from PFLOAG defectors, trained and led by BATT teams of 6 to 20 men each. The template came directly from Malaya. In October 1971, Operation Jaguar deployed 5 Furkat units alongside SAS squadrons in the first major clearing operation on the Jebel Plateau. By July 1972, PFLOAG needed a propaganda victory. They chose Mirbat. At 0600 on July 19, 1972, between 250 and 300 ADOO fighters attacked the BATT house outside Mirbat, a coastal town in Dhofar. Captain Mike Keeley commanded 9 SAS soldiers. Alongside them, 25 Omani gendarmes, 30 Balochi askars, 60 local Furkat. Against them, AK-47s, mortars, recoilless rifles, and a Carl Gustaf rocket launcher, fired by fighters described in military accounts as professional soldiers chosen specifically for the operation. Corporal Taliassi Labalaba, B Squadron, service number 238-92771, age 30, born in Fiji, ran 500 meters under fire to reach a 25-pounder artillery gun positioned next to the Dhofar Gendarmerie fort. The Omani gunner was already seriously wounded. Labalaba operated the weapon alone. A 25-pounder is a 6-man gun. He fired it once a minute. A bullet struck his face. He kept firing. Captain Keeley and Trooper Tommy Tobin sprinted to the gun emplacement. Tobin was hit in the face trying to pull Labalaba clear. Labalaba was killed at the gun. G Squadron, driving from Salalah, transmitted back, "We need reinforcements. Laba is dead, and I have 2 wounded." BAC Strike Master jets of the Sultan of Oman's Air Force arrived through monsoon Kharif cloud at low altitude, firing rockets and machine guns at PFLOAG positions. By 12:30, the attack was broken. 38 ADOO bodies were recovered. Real casualties were likely close to 80. Tommy Tobin died of his wounds on October 5, 1972. Labalaba received a posthumous mention in dispatches. His comrades have campaigned for the Victoria Cross ever since. The medals awarded at Mirbat weren't announced until 3 years after the battle, because announcing them required acknowledging that the battle had taken place. Late 1972, ministers authorized cross-border operations into South Yemen. A single Hansard entry, dated 30 April 1974, records a parliamentary debate titled Dhofar, 1 entry in 6 years. Parliament wasn't formally informed of the SAS deployment until after the war ended, in January 1976. Oxford's research archives describe it plainly. Between July 1970 and September 1976, the elite 22 Special Air Service Regiment secretly deployed to the southern province of Dhofar. Military Strategy magazine calls the Dhofar campaign the most successful counterinsurgency in history. The British government's position remains that it does not comment on Special Forces operations. Chapter 3. The Iranian Embassy, London, 1980. On May 5, 1980, at 7:23 in the evening, 30 SAS commandos stormed the Iranian embassy at 16 Prince's Gate, London. Operation Nimrod lasted 17 minutes. 25 hostages were rescued. 5 of the 6 gunmen from the Democratic Revolutionary Movement for the Liberation of Arabistan were killed. The government acknowledged this one. It was broadcast live on BBC One. What the Nimrod record does not address is the 6 days before the assault. Researchers and journalists covering the siege have attributed the codename Operation Rocking Chair to the surveillance and technical penetration operation that ran from 30 April, when 6 gunmen first seized the building, through to the moment the assault team went in. That name hasn't been confirmed by any declassified MOD document. What is confirmed is the structure. GCHQ signals collection, MI5 operational involvement, the physical surveillance apparatus that mapped the building, located the hostages, and made a 17-minute clearance possible. None of that has an official existence. The assault is the most famous Special Forces operation in British history. The classified infrastructure beneath it has no acknowledged codename, no parliamentary record, and no MOD statement. That pattern, an acknowledged outcome built on a classified foundation, appears in every chapter on this list. Chapter 4: Operation Mikado, Falklands, 1982. The codename Operation Mikado is confirmed in multiple primary sources. The plan was this: 55 soldiers of B Squadron, 22 SAS, in 2 Lockheed C-130 Hercules would land directly on the runway at Rio Grande Air Base in Tierra del Fuego. Engines running. Objective: destroy Argentina's Super Etendard aircraft and their AM-39 Exocet anti-ship missiles. Secondary: kill Argentine pilots in their quarters. Escape route: fly to the Chilean base at Punta Arenas or travel 80 kilometers overland to the border. Brigadier Peter de la Billière, Director SAS, a figure Margaret Thatcher valued highly since the Iranian embassy siege, conceived the plan and championed it to the War Cabinet. A recce went first. The night of 17 and 18 May 1982, a Royal Navy Westland Sea King inserted an SAS observation team toward Rio Grande through severe fog. The fog forced an abort. The helicopter diverted successfully to Chile, where its arrival was politically embarrassing for both governments. An Argentine claim made in 2007 that the 24th Infantry Regiment shot the helicopter down contradicts all British accounts. The team reached Chile. Mikado was formally cancelled on June 3, 1982, 11 days before Argentina's surrender. Argentine radar-guided anti-aircraft systems at Rio Grande were significantly more capable than British intelligence had assessed. 3 Marine battalions defended the base. Post-war assessment by B Squadron officers, the operation would have been suicidal. Before cancellation, the regiment split. An unnamed sergeant submitted a voluntary resignation rather than participate. The B Squadron commander who opposed the plan was relieved of command, replaced by the regiment's second-in-command. Both men's assessments proved accurate. The operation was cancelled. Their careers ended regardless. Britain has never formally acknowledged that Mikado was planned, partially executed, and abandoned. The Exocet threat that drove it, which had already sunk HMS Sheffield on May 2nd, cost ships and men that a successful operation might have prevented losing. That calculation isn't in the official record. Chapter 5: Northern Ireland, 1969 to 1997. In January 1976, Prime Minister Harold Wilson told the House of Commons, recorded in Hansard Volume 903, that he had authorised the SAS to deploy to South Armagh. It was the first parliamentary acknowledgement. It formalised what was already running. D Squadron had been deployed unannounced in 1969 for approximately 1 month. Small numbers had returned for intelligence work in 1972. Mark Urban's 1992 book, Big Boys Rules, the SAS and the Secret Struggle Against the IRA, documented the operating philosophy that men carrying weapons could expect to be shot. A classified MOD file was later deposited at the National Archives, specifically about this book. Alongside the SAS, 14 intelligence company, the Det, ran covert surveillance operations whose existence wasn't publicly acknowledged for years. Together, they generated the intelligence that enabled the 4 named ambushes. Lockall, the 8th of May 1987. 8 PYRA members killed, including East Tyrone Brigade commanders Patrick Kelly and Patrick McKerney. 1 civilian, Anthony Hughes, also killed. 1 civilian wounded. The European Court of Human Rights in Kelly and Others versus United Kingdom in 2001 found the UK had violated Article 2's procedural obligation to investigate. Drumnachilly, 1988. Cogue, 1991. Clonoe, 1992. Each officially unacknowledged, each documented in subsequent reporting and legal proceedings. John Stalker's inquiry into shoot-to-kill incidents was terminated before completion. What he found, and what was done to prevent him finding more, remains classified. Northern Ireland differs from every other chapter on this list. These operations happened under UK law, on UK soil, among UK citizens. The accountability gap isn't about diplomatic necessity or geopolitical cover. It's about what the British state chose to do within its own borders, and whether it will ever say so plainly. Chapter 6. Operation Flavius, Gibraltar, 6th March 1988. This chapter differs from all the others because the British government acknowledged it. The lesson is that acknowledgement and accountability are different things entirely. Operation Flavius, listed as MI5's operation in the Historical Dictionary of British Intelligence, ended on March 6, 1988, on a street in Gibraltar. Mairead Farrell, Daniel McCann and Sean Savage, all provisional IRA members, were shot dead by the SAS. All 3 were unarmed. They had been surveilled for days while planning a bomb attack on the changing of the guard ceremony scheduled for March 8th. No bomb was found in Gibraltar at the time of the shootings. Components were later discovered in Marbella, Spain. The Gibraltar inquest returned a verdict of lawful killing. On April 28, 1988, Thames Television broadcast Death on the Rock, a documentary presenting evidence that the 3 were shot without warning or with their hands up. The government condemned it. Thames Television's franchise was subsequently not renewed. The causal link remains contested. The sequence of events does not. The European Court of Human Rights in McCann and Others versus United Kingdom, application number 18984/91, handed down its Grand Chamber judgment on September 27, 1995. The vote was 10-9. Finding: a violation of Article 2, the right to life. The specific grounds weren't that the individual SAS operators acted unlawfully, but that the planning of the operation was flawed. Authorities failed to stop the 3 from entering Gibraltar, and failed to maintain a proper balance between counter-terrorism and the right to life. The court explicitly rejected the claim that an execution plot existed at the ministerial or MOD level. 10-9. One judge. That is the margin by which this operation sits where it sits. The government paid compensation. It admitted no liability. The planning failures identified by the court have never been subject to domestic public inquiry. Chapter 7. Operation Barras, Sierra Leone, September 10, 2000. This is the exception on the list. The British government acknowledged Operation Barras within 48 hours of its conclusion. Pay attention to what they acknowledged and what they still haven't. In August 2000, West Side Boys militia seized Royal Irish Regiment soldiers in the Ochra Hills of Sierra Leone, 6 British soldiers and a Sierra Leonean liaison officer. From 7th September, SAS teams established 2 observation posts in the surrounding jungle. On 10th September 2000, at 0630, D Squadron 22 SAS assaulted Geberi Bana. Simultaneously, 1 para hit Magbeni across the Rokel River. Both assaults ran concurrently. The hostages were recovered. Bombardier Bradley Tinian was killed by machine gun fire during the operation. He was attached to 22 SAS from his parent unit, 29 Commando Regiment Royal Artillery. His death was announced under that parent unit's name, not 22 SAS. Barras was his first operational mission with the regiment. His father, speaking from the family home in Harrogate, North Yorkshire, said only, "Unfortunately, I can't say which regiment he was in, as it is classified." The MOD statement confirmed the broad outline of the assault. It didn't confirm the pre-assault intelligence operation, the surveillance methodology, the SAS composition of the assault force, or how many West Side boys were killed. You can acknowledge an operation and still classify most of it. Operation Barras is the proof. Chapter 8. Operation Malbra, Baghdad, 23rd July 2005. The name Operation Malbra appears in public sources, including a Wikipedia entry that itself flags a single-source problem. Mark Urban's Task Force Black, the primary journalistic account of SAS operations in Iraq, uses the designation Task Force 14, later Task Force Night, for the SAS element in the country during this period. The operation designated Malbra in the partial public record was conducted in Baghdad on 23 July 2005 by M Squadron, Special Boat Service, with support from G Squadron, 22 SAS, alongside US assets including Delta Force GMVs, a Ranger platoon from Task Force Red, M1 Abrams tanks and Puma helicopters carrying airborne snipers. The target, an Al-Qaeda safe house in southern Baghdad, from which JSOC intelligence indicated a multiple suicide bombing, was hours away. JSOC was committed elsewhere. The mission went to Task Force Black. A man in a suicide vest detonated prematurely as the SBS team advanced on foot, killing himself before reaching the operators. A Puma lost momentary control in the blast. The pilot recovered. Airborne snipers killed a second man fleeing the building. The team cleared the house. Explosives were found throughout. No British casualties. The MOD has never confirmed the name Malbra. It hasn't confirmed the Task Force Black designation, the squadrons present, or the rules of engagement under which special forces operated in southern Iraq during 2005. That policy of neither confirming nor denying special forces operations was introduced by Margaret Thatcher in direct response to the Gibraltar shootings of March 1988. It's 37 years old. For the 40 years before it, ministers answered parliamentary questions about SAS operations as a matter of routine. Chapter 9. Operation Kryton, Helmand, 2006 to 2014. The designation Operation Kryton appears in a single published source, the SAS 1983 to 2014, which records that the mission was renamed Kryton in 2005. Task Force Night is confirmed across multiple sources as the SAS designation for Afghan operations in the same period. The regiment operated within the broader UKSF group, alongside CIA Special Activities Division elements, in coordination with US Joint Special Operations Command. The official NATO narrative of Helmand from 2006 to 2014 describes stabilization and peacekeeping. The SAS Direct Action Campaign against Taliban senior leadership and IED network facilitators during those same years exists in a different category of document. In July 2022, BBC Panorama, working with Action on Armed Violence, reported that one SAS squadron had been linked to the unlawful killing of 54 people in a single 6-month tour between 2010 and 2013. The Royal Military Police investigation, Operation Northmoor, was described by sources as having skipped basic investigatory procedures. Key witnesses never interviewed, aerial footage of fatal shootings never reviewed. The independent inquiry relating to Afghanistan was established in December 2022. Evidence heard in 2025 included testimony that Afghan boys younger than 16 were executed. These are allegations in an active public inquiry, not confirmed findings. What is confirmed, the gap between the official Helmand narrative and what actually happened, is large enough to have generated a public inquiry, a BBC documentary, and more than 75 confidential sources. The name Kryton hasn't been confirmed by the government. The operational tempo hasn't been confirmed. The targeting methodology hasn't been confirmed. Chapter 10. Yemen and Mali, the 2010s. In October 2023, the Defence and Security Media Advisory Committee, successor since 2015 to the D-Notice system, issued a notice to British media concerning SAS operations in the Middle East. The DSMA notice covers, by definition, military counter-terrorist forces, special forces, and intelligence agency operations, activities, and communication methods and techniques. A notice was necessary because there was something to suppress. In Yemen, UK special forces have been documented by multiple journalists operating alongside Saudi coalition forces against Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula from 2015 onwards. The government's parliamentary position, advisory capacity only. Reprieve and other human rights organisations have documented what they describe as direct action. Every parliamentary question on the subject has received the same answer. The government neither confirms nor denies special forces activity. In Mali, following France's 2013 Operation Serval intervention, UK special forces have been documented by journalists in both advisory and direct action roles. The non-combat role language used in parliamentary statements about Mali tracks almost exactly with the language used about Dhofar in the early 1970s. The deniability structure hasn't changed in 50 years. The geography has. Chapter 11. European Counter-Terror Cooperation and the Munich Connection. Two threads, both unconfirmed in official UK records. After the murder of 11 Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics in September 1972, Prime Minister Golda Meir and Defence Minister Moshe Dayan authorised Operation Wrath of God, A sustained assassination campaign against everyone connected to Black September. The hit squad, codenamed Bayonet, comprised Mossad officers and Israeli Defense Forces Special Operations personnel. It operated across Europe from October 1972 through a final killing in Beirut in 1979. Its existence is confirmed. Its British dimension, if one exists, isn't. George Jonas's Vengeance covers the Israeli operations in detail. No second named source has corroborated any SAS participation in Mossad European missions during this period. The contemporary thread. Following the November 2015 Paris attacks and the March 2016 Brussels bombings, UK Special Forces were reportedly deployed in support roles for Belgian and French counter-terrorism operations. European partner governments have made statements about British SF presence that the British government itself hasn't confirmed. This is the dimension of deniability the other chapters don't address. Operations that aren't just concealed from the British public, but from allied governments as well. Chapter 12. The Special Reconnaissance Regiment and what follows. The Special Reconnaissance Regiment was established in 2005 and is officially acknowledged as part of the United Kingdom Special Forces Group. Its mission set has never been publicly defined. It exists alongside 22 SAS, 21 SAS, 23 SAS, the Special Forces Support Group, 18 Signals Regiment, and the Special Boat Service within that structure. The capability sometimes referred to in research contexts as E-Squadron, a reported signals and technical intelligence unit operating under civilian cover, has no confirmed official designation. It may be a researcher attribution rather than an actual organizational name. The Intelligence Services Act 1994 provides the statutory basis for intelligence operations conducted under civilian cover. Whether a capability described as E-Squadron exists under that name, a different name, or no formal name at all, isn't something the British government has addressed. What is confirmed? DSMA Notice 03 was issued specifically about SAS operations in the Middle East in October 2023. The All-Party Parliamentary Group on UK Special Forces, in its 2023 report, recorded that Parliament struggles to hold UKSF accountable for short-notice, high-risk operations. The oversight mechanism designed to fill the accountability gap has itself formally acknowledged that the gap exists. The architecture of operational secrecy isn't a historical artifact. It's active. It's funded. It's, under current statute, entirely legal. And, as the APPG noted, it's only partially visible to the people elected to scrutinise it. 12 operations, 8 decades. The policy of neither confirming nor denying SAS operations is 37 years old. For the 40 years before it, ministers answered parliamentary questions about the regiment as a matter of course. The first SAS soldiers to die in a classified operation died in France in 1944. The War Secretary told Parliament about them in April 1945. What changed in late 1988 wasn't the nature of the operations. What changed was the decision that the public's elected representatives no longer needed to know they were happening. The Army Historical Branch list is shorter than this video. The pinned comment below contains the bibliography, the books, the ECHR judgments, the parliamentary records, and the AOAV reports that built this account. The full operational record, the after-action reports, the ministerial authorizations, the targeting decisions, the names of the men who fired the rounds, is in files that won't be released in the lifetime of anyone watching this. There will, in time, be a 13th operation, and a 14th, You will hear about them when, and only when, the British government decides to admit they happened. We will keep watching. Subscribe if this kind of forensic history is what you come here for. More is coming.